Hello class, hope all is well. Today we're going to be working with some kind of a food stuff in a plastic bag. Now what I have here is a Little Debbie oatmeal cream pie, and I'm going to tape it to my board right up here, and I'm going to draw from it. Now since you guys are working from home, you're going to have to raid your pantry to see what you have. But I'm sure you'll have something that you can put in a Ziploc bag. I think I mentioned maybe popcorn or cereal or trail mix, crackers, something that has a lot of texture, something that'll give you some. If you look on this, there's hills and there's valleys. Hills and valleys. So I want to see something like this. Don't put like a cup of sugar, because it looks all about the same. I want you to have something that has, some, easily detectable surface texture, and I want it to be in a plastic bag. Now you see, every way I turn this plastic bag, the light's changing, and there's all these different shapes that you're gonna have to figure out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a very short demo right now on how I'm going to approach at the very middle part of drawing this. Now everything that you're going to draw, it might be a different object, might be a different food stuff, but the way you would approach it is going to be essentially the same. We're going to be using charcoal today, the charcoal with a K. You're going to be using your erasers. Also have set up so you can cut your erasers down to be nice and straight and clean edge. So you don't have to chop one of your erasers in half. So laying that out, we're going to draw big to the size of the page. I am going to tone down my paper just a little bit beforehand, and then I'll get started. I think I'm going to draw this side because it has this other little fold, and it's just another interesting thing that adds more texture. So this is a really challenging, it's a challenging thing to draw, something that's underneath plastic, because you want to create the illusion of that. You also, since it's going to be hanging on my board, I want to create the illusion of gravity. This thing is hanging, so I can see where these lines are pulling the plastic. So that's the first order of business. Get your material, your food stuffs, snacks, whatever it is. Get it taped up to your wall or nail it to a wall, and start toning your drawing down. That's what I'm going to do right now, and then I'm going to move on to blocking it out. Okay, so I'm going to put this on my high speed. Okay, so I'm going to get started blocking this out. So when I do this, I'm just going to be using straight lines, okay? Short, straight lines. First, I want to fit everything in. I want the tape, I want it all. So I'm going to draw the line that represents that tape and just kind of a general shape of that tape. Kind of comes up, bends a little bit, goes this way. Okay. That kind of comes open. Feel loose in keeping it, and keeping everything really, really, really loose. This is a lot of process. Going to go into this drawing, and I just need to get things just placed on the paper so I know what's what. Maybe I'll bring this over a little bit more. Okay, bring this down over. So that's generally the bag part of this. Alright, so I'm going to look at the pie. Now the pie, this cookie, it's round, it's at an angle. So it's a cylinder. There's two parts to it, right? So I'm saying there's cylinders, boxes, and everything. So I'm looking at this negative space to see how much and where the tape is, and see how much space that I see, and that's going to help me determine how big this cookie is inside the bag. Also, the cookie's slumping down into this corner, so I also have negative space that goes around this edge. So I'm using that negative space to help me determine how big the cookie is. I could just make it up, and erase and make it bigger. But if I'm just focusing on this space right here, this is what I mean by negative space, the surrounding space. It's going to give me all the answers. So, something like that. Like I said, it's a cylinder shape, so something like that. That way you can see that. So that's the first step. That's the first step. I might even draw it as it's hanging off the edge of the paper too. It hangs off the paper a little bigger. So that's how I want it. I want it to fit on the sides of the paper as big as you can get it. So this is a long skinny thing, so you know it goes almost close to the edge down here, and I still got a little bit of room up here at the top. If you draw too big, then just shrink it down a little bit. If you draw too small, start drawing like this big, I want it bigger. I want it to the size of the paper. Check out the examples that I sent you earlier today on this type of drawing. All right, so the next step you want to go to is you want to start blocking in the values. Now, looking at this, I don't have a white background. Actually, this is darker than the cookie. This right here, I have to decide if I want that or not. I don't know. I might put something white behind it. You know, just because it might be easier to draw and easier to see. I think I am now. Cookie is the darkest thing. This would be the next darkest value here. But there's also all these dark values that reside in the cookie itself. So first thing I want to do is I want to make this darker. I want to find a good mid value. A mid value between this and maybe what the darkest thing will be. And the darkest thing will be like these small, very tiny shadows that are tucked away underneath the golden, delicious oatmeal crust. Okay. So maybe I want to take this. I'll take it another maybe 15% darker. So I'll go over it again. Like I said, I'm just going to be loose with everything. There's a little bit of shadow where the two cookies come together. So that's what I'm getting right now. Okay, then I'm going to look at the cookie, and so one thing I'll do is I'll take my eyes maybe just a little out of focus. It kind of helps me see just some of the areas. So I'm going to start drawing some of this this crumble that's happening here. Okay. When you're going into drawing something like this, you know, it's like a puzzle. Think about this as, you know, it's a puzzle. You got to figure out all the components that make it come together as far as value, texture, line, quality, all those things. But my instincts, my drawing instincts, tell me to maybe get these first out of the way. At least so I have like a little plotted map to go by, a topographical map, you know, a map from above. You know, this is very similar. I see hills and mountains in this. I'm ignoring the plastic right now. I'm ignoring the plastic because I'm going to draw the plastic over it. I'm going to draw it as it is. So I'm going to draw the cookie first, and I'm going to draw the plastic over the top, and that's going to really give the illusion that this thing is wrapped up in plastic. So I'm trying to ignore that plastic the best I can and just focus on the cookie and the details I see there. Am I going to, you know, make sure every one of these is perfectly distanced from each other? No, I'm trying to get the drawing to a point where if you saw this, you would go, oh, that's an oatmeal cookie, or it's a gooey cookie of some kind. I'm not trying to accurately, photographically, realistically, realistically, but maybe not like 100% accuracy, photorealism. I'm not going for that. There are amazing artists that do that. But for this assignment, you know, you're spending an hour and, you know, 2 hours in class doing it. So what also I want you to keep focusing on is you want to, when you're drawing, you want to be as efficient as possible. You want to be able to make a great 3-hour drawing, not a kind of okay start to a 8-hour drawing. So you got to know how to manage your time. It takes time to get this over time. It takes time to get this where you're like, I know what kind of drawing I can do in 3 hours, and you make that the best drawing. Now, is that drawing going to compare to a drawing that I spent 30 days on? No, it's not, right? It's good. 30 days is going to have a lot more into it, a lot more detail. But I do want to get as much detail as I possibly can in the short amount of time that I'm drawing. So, so I'm just kind of trying to catch the essence of what this thing, would feel like. So when the viewer looks at it, they go, "Oh, okay, I get it. It's a cookie. It's gooey. It's baked. It's got that going for it." Like I said, there's good drawings that are short amount of time drawing, and there's some drawings that are just amazing because of how long and how much devotion was given to the drawing. This is a long study. I would call this a long study. Okay, so I've given this drawing another round. So this time last time I used the charcoal with a K, gave this thing some detail. Now I went through with my charcoal pencil. I gave it another round of detail. You notice I put in some hatch marks here representing shadows. Now I'm going to blend it down a little bit. I call it knocking the drawing down. So when I'm knocking the drawing down, I'm not trying to remove all the charcoal, right? I'm just trying to push it in areas that I think that need it. Like things that might just need to be kind of pushed down a little bit. It means it's not going to be as intense. If the line are really, really, really dark, I can soften them at that point. Okay. But I don't want to do the whole thing. I don't want to just go at it. I'm just softening the drawing where I feel like it needs to be just a little lighter, a little floatier. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use the eraser. Start doing some of the eraser marks. So this is what I mean when I say I want a nice sharp eraser. See how it's cut? It got some nice clean edges. It's not all covered in charcoal. If you have one that's covered in charcoal, just chop it in half and you'll have a nice clean eraser to work with. You want to have a little bit of variety in your eraser. See how this, I can do marks that are really wide, but I could also turn it to its side and do a more rounded mark with the corner, or I could use, just the very edge and do something clean. So I can do this, right? I can do this. I can just tap, take off a little bit. That. This will give me kind of a round mark. And then I have the edge, which gives me a nice, super clean straight line. So you want to take this project and explore all the marks the eraser will make. You're still drawing. Don't think about erasing as erasing. Think about erasing as you're drawing. So now I'm going to pick out some of the really bright highlights that I see reflecting off the surface of this plastic. Now I got to make a decision here. If I start here, it's totally different things. So I'm going to stand here and I'm going to keep this where it's at. And I'm going to just start laying in some of that, laying in some of the highlights. One thing that's nice about it is I can be pretty aggressive with this too, because I can always go in and settle it down. Something going on here like that. So I'll just pick one and I'll follow it around, see what it connects to. Like this being the edge of the plastic, there should be no hard contour line there. If you're still making hard contour lines on your drawing, that's a #1 priority to try to figure out to not do that. Because no hard contour lines exist. It's always just the difference between value and light and shadow. It's okay to have those marks there as placeholders, but at some point you want to get rid of them. Also, don't use a white pencil or white chalk. Use an eraser on this. We'll have an assignment where we use the white chalk, but this isn't the one for it. What's nice about laying this transparent part, you're using the eraser, is there's still little bits where you can still see, you know, depending on how much I erase, you can still see what's underneath that erase mark. So it's the content, the medium that we're using is affecting the content, which is great, which is what we want. So it makes sense to draw it this way, to draw the cookie first, and then draw the plastic over. Because then you see, like, you know, it creates that illusion that it's, you know, it's in a plastic bag. Okay, this is a good stopping point for me. Kind of give you an idea of where I want your drawings to be at the end of class. So I'll just kind of describe what I got going on here. So there's my oatmeal pie. There's that piece of tape. Notice I haven't put any really refined details on anything just yet. I'm still pushing some charcoal around. I'm still, you know, feeling out where I need the light. Still working out where the direction my marks need to be. Still trying to see, you know, what works, what looks like it's reflective light, what works as far as looking like this texture in the oatmeal pie. You know, still figuring some things out. But all in all, it's in a pretty good spot. It's in a pretty good spot, and the next stage I would go through is after this, I would step back. I'd step back and I'd just look at the drawing for a little bit and go, okay, and then I'd look at the still life, right? Look at the still life, look at the drawing. Still life, drawing, just kind of comparing, just shapes. Flexions are going to be different, but the shapes, the shape of the bag, the shape of the cookie, whatever's in the bag. And then, you know, I'd make some mental notes. Then I'd come back and then I'd start refining. I've got a lot, you know, you might see something like this where I just have like straight lines going over everything. I know that I could easily push those down to be like a flatter value. Or knock down, as I said earlier. But all in all, I got the whole drawing addressed in that second run, and then basically what I'll do is I'll come back. I'll go to those points where I think it needs more work, like over here I think it needs more work. I'm still fighting this area a little bit and this area just a little bit. So maybe I'll put more focus on the actual cookie and some of those textures. And then I'll come back to where the bag and I'll start to tighten up my drawing and keep refining. And then I'll start adding more and more detail. So that's the key. The key is to keep building up your drawing, taking a break, look at the drawing, go back, fix what needs to be fixed, push ahead, more value, pushing value, whether that's reductive, taken away, or adding, but also starting to build the texture. And over time, all these layers start to to give that kind of effect. You know, this thing has some volume. It's got some weight to it. It's got visual weight, but it also has, it actually looks like it's showing gravity. It starts to look like what it is. Cookie in a bag. Okay, so this is where I would like you to be, close to the end of the class by tomorrow, maybe a little bit further ahead. But send me, you'll send me your images and I'll take a look at them, and I'll look at them after class and see where they all need to go next. Okay? Okay, I will correspond tomorrow.